My biggest challenge as a mother is not getting the time that I'd like to have with my wife, frankly. Because our life is consumed with little people. So I really have to fight hard for that time and space, and sometimes I don't like it. Because I love my wife and I love who she is, and I like being around her. And sometimes we're down with the children, having to go over something that just occurred, or something that broke, or oh, my feelings are hurt, or it just goes on and on. So, yep, I miss my wife. Yep, it's the end of the day. That is my biggest challenge, and for me to have patience with, and hurdle, because I have to jump over the children to get to her.
I think is seeing the pathway that I think is clear for the kids. Is, you know, I used to make a joke is when I was in college, I did some stand-up comedy. So one of the lines I said is, you know, after college, I said I think I'm going to go to Europe and travel travel and live around the world and just define myself. And I said my father thought it was such a good idea, he's going to join me. So it's just that idea too. So it's kind of like, I want you to be independent and find your own way, but I'll join you kind of thing. Is I think just letting go that way too, and trusting that they'll find their own ways. I think that's a hard part of that too. And then also making sure that when being present when you're with them, I'm a very hyper person as well too, and just it sometimes takes discipline for me to sit down and play a board game or something like that. I like doing things as well, which in some ways is good for kids. But even now, I might have a more meaningful conversation. Even my son's living at home. Sometimes if we just drive somewhere and we're in the car facing forward, having a conversation that way can be a more intimate conversation.
I think the biggest challenge for me being a parent is showing love, especially physical love. I think she mentioned before, as I growing up, my mother or father did not show a lot of physical love, hugging, kissing, or even words of affirmation. There was some, I can't say wasn't any, but I don't think it was enough to have an influence on me to do that, you know, to feel a certain way, to do that to my kids. So I'm challenged by showing physical love and hugging and kissing and saying positive things instead of negative things, because that's what I was taught. So every day it's a challenge, and I have to remind myself. So once in a while, out of the blue, I'll just come up to my son or give him a hug and tell him positive things, just because I know that wasn't instilled in me as a child. So I need to become a better dad. These are things I need to do, and they need.
We had an interesting conversation with our kids like 6 months ago, and my job actually helped me have this conversation with my family. I felt inspired by, we have a leadership program in my company that talks about, you know, your personal side, not only work, so you can feel comfortable about bringing your whole self to work. And I remember learning that day that I wasn't putting as much emphasis and energy into my family as I did at work. And it shifted something in my mind, and I came home and had this idea of this, you know, like family powwow type of thing. And I don't think we've ever at that point had a conversation like that. It was after dinner, and we told the kids that we were going to be having a conversation, and I told my husband, I said, this is something that needs to be said. I think there's this anxiety or tension in the house because you have this difficult relationship with your father, and it is weighing heavily on how you parent, and I don't think the kids understand where that's coming from, and I think we should share that with them. And I think before that they never knew that he had the kind of relationship he had with his father. So we were kind of freeing ourselves and sharing that, and I told him also that it's going to help him become more accountable, because his kids will know that when they see their dad behaving in a certain way, that it's because of his past, and that they should bring it to his attention and say, Dad, I thought, you know, you wanted to be less like your father. And so I think having these ideas and having this awareness of why we do what we do, but then shielding it from the kids, I think was a no-no in my opinion. So we came home, we talked about it. I asked him if he was comfortable sharing, and he said that he was. And I think it was difficult, like, for him to tell his boys, I didn't have the best dad, and this is how my dad was. But I think it sheds some light on why their dad may react a certain way under pressure or react negatively to their behavior. I think it did help in having that conversation because now they see him more like a human being who has had a past and not necessarily a mean dad or a dad who doesn't love me.
Like I said, Molly's a really good kid. There's only two times I can think of off the top of my head. Currently, she's a teenager, so it's nothing crazy. It's just that all of a sudden she hates the name Molly, so she wants to rebrand herself as Mason because it seems like she and a lot of her friends are doing like this gender neutral thing. It's just I noticed like a lot of her friends are just changing their name and I was like, and I keep asking her, like, I just don't understand, like, why? like what, like, where did this name come from? Like, what? I just don't get it. And I know I sound like an old guy, an old dad, which is fine. I'm fine with that. I don't care. But ultimately, she's gonna, she's getting to, she's looking around the corner at adulthood, and it sounds crazy to me that she's a freshman in high school, but it's right around the corner. Like, it will be here before I know it, and she knows it, definitely. So she can change her name to Farty McFartpants or whatever she wants at that point, because she'll be an adult and like, it's your name now. So I guess I just have to get that across to her, that people know her by one thing, and it's a big deal to change a name. The other time was when she was in 5th grade, and up until 5th grade, she was an amazing student. 5th grade, boy, she was failing everything. She was cheating on tests. It was just like, literally out of nowhere, like she just sucked at school. So what we did was we realized that maybe traditional school was not working. So we went to online school. Traditional homeschool wasn't really anything we could do. I was still working a full-time. Maggie had a part-time, I think, at the time. So it was not possible to sit at home and teach her traditional homeschool. So we went online school. We're kind of a tech family anyway, so it made sense. And that really worked out. Multiple reasons. She got back into her studies, and she realized that she's a smart kid. She just has to work hard. Which is two different things, and it's hard. It's a hard lesson to learn. Also, she's a very extroverted person. Maggie and I are very introverted. Molly is extremely extroverted. She needs friends in her life. Online school, she was not getting that. She had little friends in her neighborhood, but she still didn't really see them because they were at school, and then they would come home and they would have homework and stuff. She wasn't really seeing anybody, and she realized that if she stayed doing this online school, she wasn't going to have friends. And it's really hard to hang out with the people in online school because they're all over the county and sometimes all over the state. So it made her realize what she had at public school, that she needed to buckle down and actually do the work. And if she didn't, she was just not going to see anybody. And then after that, she started getting A's and B's again. She went back to public school, and it worked. Like, it totally worked. It was totally fine.
The biggest challenge that I've faced being a mother is getting my child to understand that there probably isn't anything he has lived, that he's going to live through, that I didn't, that my parents didn't, that there's nothing new under the sun. And getting somebody young or of a different generation to understand and to believe that is a challenge. Getting them to realize that you didn't come this far. You didn't get where you are as a parent by not knowing anything. And that there is not a whole lot that they're going to encounter that you haven't had some experience with or some related experience with and know how to navigate. So I guess for us in our mind, they think that everything's new and that we don't understand. And that it wasn't like we grew up we're ancient. We grew up in the Flintstone era, and they weren't They didn't have girlfriends, or they didn't go, you know what I mean? Things weren't like they are now. And so that's a challenge to get them to understand that while times change, some things remain the same. And to get them to understand that they're not invincible, that they're vulnerable, that the things that we worry about are real.
My biggest challenge is letting go. I mentioned it earlier, but about feeling responsible for the way your children end up, the kind of person they end up becoming, and knowing that nothing is certain, right? And I think sometimes putting pressure on children to become who you want them to become is a lot for someone who's trying to find their way and who's growing. Trying to find that balance between giving your kids autonomy and freedom to become the people they want to become, but also trying to help them understand what the values are of the family at the same time. I think that's important. It's really hard to do too, because your instinct in you is to protect your kids, and so you protect them by, isolating them, controlling them, limiting them from choice. And so we tend to do that more. I think having to let go and surrender that and saying, as long as they know what we believe and they're good people, they will find their way, and we have to kind of free them from that.
My biggest challenge as a mom was, especially as my kids started growing up and developing, was actually letting them out of the house. Because they're so cute and so handsome, so pretty. And I'm like, please, Lord God, don't let nothing bad happen to these kids. But I know that's unrealistic. So now my biggest challenge was letting go of that concern and letting them go out there and experience the world and give them the tools to handle whatever comes, and we say to them, life is not fair. The most fairness you're gonna get is in this house. So be prepared for that out there. Once you leave this house, any and everything can happen. But you have to decide, who are you? What are you going to stand for? Because if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for everything. So that's how I got over it, was to pray through it. Really get with God and ask for His help, His guidance, His wisdom, which I do every single day. And then I decided, let me live in front of them what I pray that they live in front of their children, and give them everything that I can so that they can handle whatever comes at them. And a lot of times that means giving them belief in themselves.